Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Caroline. I am Green Energy Consumer Alliance's Electric Vehicle Program Associate, and I will be leading our webinar today on understanding MOR-EV and stackable electric car incentives. To give a little bit of background about who we are as a nonprofit, Green Energy Consumers is a nonprofit with a mission to empower consumers and communities to speed a just transition to a zero carbon world. We were founded in 1982 as an oil co-op here in Massachusetts, and today our programming covers Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Our work involves programming and advocacy. Drive Green, on the other hand, where I'm speaking from today, is a program that began in 2016. We evolved and have started with the mission to educate consumers about the benefits of electric vehicles and provide a platform through which they could buy EVs. As a program, we did outreach and worked closely with dealerships in the beginning. We offered deals through the program, but as market trends shifted during the pandemic, now we mainly focus on outreach events, and we're lucky to work with community partners to facilitate events, including ride and drives, where you can experience an EV firsthand. Now, about the Department of Environmental Resources and the Center for Sustainable Energy, both of these entities administer the MOR-EV program. The Center for Sustainable Energy is a national nonprofit with a mission of accelerating the adoption of clean transportation. Now we can first ask ourselves, what is MOR-EV? This will be the bulk of our presentation. MOR-EV is a statewide electric vehicle rebate program for eligible battery electric vehicles and fuel cell EVs. There are a few rebates under the program. There is a $3,500 amount for standard and used. There is an income qualifying rebate. There is MOR-EV trade-in, and there is a $7,500 rebate for electric pickup trucks. Point of sale rebates will include MOR-EV standard, MOR-EV used, and MOR-EV plus. Now, in today's presentation, we'll start with electric vehicle basics as well as some of the benefits behind switching to an EV. We'll move into charging and get a feel for how charging works and how to navigate charging infrastructure. We'll take a deep dive into the MOR-EV program, and we will follow with an overview of the federal tax credit, finally finishing with a Q&A. Before we start with battery electric vehicles, these are for drivers who want to achieve zero tailpipe emissions and have access to charging opportunities. Note that a battery electric vehicle does not use gasoline and instead is battery powered that will power its electric motor. Modern EVs have a range of around 230, 250 to 350 or so more miles. Earlier battery electric vehicles that were on the road, we can think of the Nissan Leaf, will have a lower range. A battery electric vehicle can charge at levels 1, 2, or at DC fast charge. And you might reach a full charge at anywhere from 4 to 10 hours, depending on your battery's capacity and the level of charging that you are using. Some examples include a Honda Prologue or a Chevy Equinox. Battery electric vehicles will require limited maintenance. Once you make the switch, you would never need an oil change again. Here we have plug-in hybrids. These are for drivers that still want to take advantage of an electric-only mode, but will appreciate the option of a gas engine as well to meet their driving needs. So plug-in hybrids have a small battery and are also powered by gas. Total electric range ranges from 25 to 53 miles in electricity with a 150 to 570 mile range. Plug-in hybrids can charge at level 1 or level 2. And some more newer plug-in hybrids, such as the new Toyota RAV4 Prime, can even charge at level 3. These are some examples. Unfortunately, plug-in hybrids do not qualify for the MOR-EV rebate, but they do qualify for the federal tax credit, hence why we are going over them today. Now we'll move on to fuel cell EVs. These are for drivers who would want to combine zero emission experience of driving a battery electric car, and these are refueled quickly by hydrogen. So you would go to a hydrogen refueling station to refuel your vehicle. It only takes a few minutes. Total range would be similar to that of battery electric vehicles, ranging from 250 to 320 or so miles in total. A Hyundai Nexo or a Hyundai Clarity or a Toyota Mirai are some examples of a fuel cell EV. Most fuel cell EVs are on the road in California, and not so much in New England, and that is because hydrogen refueling infrastructure is more robust on the West Coast than it is in our neck of the woods. To give a high-level summary of some of the benefits offered by battery electric vehicles, first we can see more of a public health improvement and benefit. For example, battery electric vehicles greatly reduce or eliminate tailpipe emissions depending on if you're driving a battery electric or a plug-in hybrid. And because very much more little or zero tailpipe emissions are produced, battery electric vehicles can help to reduce air pollution. You know that more than 95% of air pollution in Massachusetts comes from the results of combustion of fossil fuels. And this is especially important because transportation is a leading emitting sector in the state. Now, an improvement of public health is another example of a benefit, and when harmful emissions are reduced, we can see a public health benefit in our communities and a decreased risk of adverse health effects that can come from the result of exposure to particulate matter and other harmful emissions such as asthma and respiratory conditions. These are just some of the high-level summary of some of the benefits. We'll get into a little bit more in the following slides. We can also mention lower fuel costs. And I can briefly describe our process behind determining that it is cheaper to drive a mile on electricity than on gas. And this is because EVs are very efficient. So quarterly, National Grid and Eversource, two utilities in Massachusetts, will update their electricity prices. So we make several assumptions on a quarterly basis. These are to assume that on average, an EV will use 0.3 kilowatt hours of energy per mile, and that the average fuel efficiency of a gas car is 27.1 miles per gallon. As of late June, the price of gas in New England was $3.16. So we'll look at two of the utilities in Massachusetts. We see the quarterly electricity prices for National Grid and for Eversource. For example, and I'll just go over National Grid's example, because it's the same process. The cost per kilowatt hour in National Grid territory is 35 cents. To calculate the cost per mile of electricity, we can multiply 35 cents by the assumed efficiency of EVs per mile. Here we will get 10 cents per mile, and that is the cost to drive per mile on electricity. We'll then repeat the process for Eversource, and of course we'll also calculate the cost to drive per mile on gas. So to do this, we would divide the average price of gas, $3.16 per mile, by the assumed fuel efficiency of gas cars, and it's 27.1 miles per gallon. And we got these numbers from the EPA. And then we can deduce that it costs around 11 cents per mile on gas. And once we subtract the two, find that drivers generally save a few cents per mile on electricity compared to per mile on gas. Electric vehicles are also more efficient. So far we've looked at a high-level summary of some of the benefits. We just looked at fuel cost savings. Now we can get into how EVs are generally more efficient. When we think of efficiency, we can think of how much energy it takes to complete a task. And in this case, it can be how well a car converts energy. So an electric vehicle converting electricity, or a car, an ICE, internal combustion engine vehicle converting fuel into movement. On the left, we can look at average electric car ranges. Like I mentioned, modern EVs will be anywhere between the 250 to 330 plus mile range. And then plug-in hybrids will have a small electric range, as you can see in blue, followed by their miles per gallon and what they're capable of. We can see electric vehicles are in that range that we talked about, and then plug-in hybrids are both efficient as well, with a small electric range and a higher miles per gallon than an average gas car. And we can see that on the right, because on the right in that graph, we're looking at the miles per gallon equivalent in miles per gallon of popular cars. We can think of miles per gallon as an EPA created metric to measure and analyze all electric efficiency. And for a plug-in hybrid, miles per gallon means and refers to gasoline being used when the battery is out of charge. We can also take a look at that on the left. We can take another second to look at this. So total range will take into account efficiency and battery size. Those are two important factors that can impact a vehicle's efficiency. And we can also think of the higher the efficiency, the less waste the vehicle, either a battery electric or a gas car, will waste. And what that can look like is in colder temperatures in the winter, for example, both gas cars and electric cars are impacted by weather temperature, and sometimes some of that energy will be lost to heat or to heating the car. But with a more efficient vehicle, more energy is being used to complete a task. And you can see from these two graphs that electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids will have a higher miles per gallon equivalent than their gas car neighbors. Move into maintenance costs. We have gas cars on the left, followed by traditional hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and finally battery electric vehicles. So in this slide, we're really focusing more on the economic benefits in addition to fuel cost savings we already talked about. You might notice that the whole orange category of costs doesn't exist for EVs. EVs don't have a tailpipe and therefore don't have tailpipe emissions. It's pure battery electric vehicles in that case. Additionally, battery electric vehicles will never need an oil change. Their brake pads will need to be replaced much less than that of a gas car, in part due to regenerative braking, a technological process in which the battery captures heat used when you're braking the car, and that energy is used to help enhance overall battery and range. That is an example, right, as we can see right here. If you are driving a gas car and you wanted to compare scheduled maintenance costs on a per mile basis to that of a pure battery electric vehicle, we can see that battery electric vehicles will save on average around 4 cents per mile. This was sourced from the Department of Energy here. Now that we've gone over some of the different public health and economical and environmental benefits of battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids, we can get into charging. There are a few different levels of charging. Level 1 is the slowest method. It's also called trickle charging, but it's sufficient for a driver who might charge overnight or drive anywhere from 30 to 40 miles per day. It'll utilize a standard household 120 volt outlet. Generally only occur at home, and once you have your battery electric vehicle or your plug-in hybrid, you can plug in that cord that you receive when you obtain the vehicle right into your wall. And that outlet is called a 120 volt outlet. Level 2 is considerably faster. Generally require an electrician to install a 240 volt outlet, and you can use the cord that you received right when you obtain the vehicle to plug in. That range is faster, anywhere from 14 to 35 miles of charge per hour. Again, this will depend on your battery capacity as well as the charger's capacity. You'll find this at home as well at public charging stations. And this can be wall mounted. You might have a portable charging unit. You can often purchase a portable charging cord that you can just plug into a 240 volt outlet. And then additionally, that 240 outlet, we can think of that as the outlet that will power our washing machine, for example. And then DC fast charging is also called level 3. It's considerably faster than the last two. It will require traveling to a public charging station. And these are not found at home because they utilize and rely on a lot of power, but you can achieve anywhere from 100 miles in 30 minutes of charging, or another way to think about it is achieving or going from 10 to 80% of a full charge in as little as 30 minutes. So it's a very convenient, fast way to fuel up. Now that we've looked at the different levels of charging, it's important to know where charging is near you. We took a screenshot here from PlugShare. PlugShare is an open source map that is not affiliated with a particular charging station, but since it's open source, it will locate and pinpoint different chargers near you. You can see green will refer to level 2, and orange refers to DC fast charging. You can even see some of the symbols refer to chargers in construction. And so we took 2 screenshots from both sides of Massachusetts on the western and eastern ends. This is one resource we recommend to pinpoint charging near you. Some other great resources are ChargePoint and a better route planner for long-term route planning. We can get into the nitty-gritty of the MOR-EV program, as well as defining each rebate and what the different applications look like and how to obtain them. Again, to provide a brief overview, MOR-EV is the statewide EV rebate program. It is administered by the Center for Sustainable Energy and the Department of Energy Resources. And some of the rebates can be received at the point of sale. This is a high-level rebate overview. So a pre-qualification voucher will be required for MOR-EV use and MOR-EV Plus, and these are because these are income qualifying rebates. Once you are looking to apply, you can go directly to the MOR-EV.org website, click apply or create an account, and can generally confirm your income eligibility depending on whether you participate in an income qualifying program such as SNAP, LIHEAP, if you're on the reduced electricity rate, or Mass Health, for example. The MOR-EV website has a more comprehensive list. And then one other brief thing I will mention about MOR-EV trucks is that you can see that the MOR-EV truck rebates will depend on the gross vehicle weight rating of the truck in mind. So heavier trucks are categorized by class, and that depends on vehicle weight. And GVWR, or gross vehicle weight rating, refers to that categorical difference. Now, MOR-EV standard is a $3,500 rebate for new battery electric vehicles. To be eligible, you must be a Massachusetts resident or business or a nonprofit organization that is located and licensed to operate in Massachusetts. In terms of vehicle eligibility, it must be a new battery electric vehicle or fuel cell EV, and that total price limit is $55,000 or less. And MOR-EV has an eligible vehicle list. Now, if you're on the website and navigate to participating in qualifying vehicles, it is a search engine tool where you can look up or view as a list which vehicles qualify, which vehicles and which trims qualify, because that's important, and sometimes trims are listed at a different price. In terms of program eligibility, MOR-EV standard can be used for purchasing or for leasing. For leasing, lease terms must be at least 36 months in length to be eligible. MOR-EV Used is a $3,500 rebate for used electric vehicles. And to qualify, again, you have to be a Massachusetts resident or participate in an approved income qualifying program such as SNAP, Mass Health, LIHEAP, some of those programs I mentioned, or your adjusted gross income cannot exceed the following limits that we see here: $75,000 for individual filers, $112,500 for heads of household, and $150,000 for if you're filing jointly. And if in terms of adjusted gross income, if you were not participating in an income qualifying program, but you had a tax transcript, you could use that and upload that to confirm your income eligibility. In terms of vehicle eligibility, it must be a used battery electric vehicle or fuel cell EV, and that vehicle must be at least 2 years older than the calendar year that you are purchasing or leasing it in. That price limit is $40,000 or less, and that vehicle cannot have received the MOR-EV rebate in the past 36 months. You can also lease under MOR-EV used as well. That lease term is 36 months to be eligible, and I mentioned there is a pre-qualification voucher in order to receive this rebate at the point of sale. MOR-EV Plus is a $1,500 income adder rebate, and to participate, you must be a Massachusetts resident to be eligible. You must participate in several of the following income programs. These are just some examples. This list is not exhaustive. Mass Save, SNAP is on here, Mass Rental Voucher Program, and LIHEAP as well. For a more complete list, we'll look at the next page. And again, there is that pre-qualification voucher that must be achieved. And that would mean you were pre-approved to receive it at the point of sale. That pre-approval process can take place online, and then once you fill out your information, you would receive what's called a pre-qualification voucher. We bring this to the dealership to receive it at the point of sale. These are some other examples of income qualifying programs that can be used to determine eligibility for MOR-EV used or MOR-EV Plus. We'll move on to MOR-EV trucks. To be eligible, you must be a Massachusetts resident or a private business, nonprofit organization, educational institution, or a local municipal or state government that is located in Massachusetts. In terms of vehicle eligibility, I mentioned before that that gross vehicle weight rating will be very important. And so for the $7,500 MOR-EV trucks rebate, that gross vehicle weight rating must be in between 6,000 and 10,000 pounds. And that total MSRP must be $80,000. There is also a subsequent MOR-EV trucks rebate for vehicles and trucks with a higher and heavier gross vehicle weight rating, as you can see here on the slide. In terms of other program requirements, recipients must retain ownership of the vehicle and maintain an active registration with the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles for a minimum of 36 consecutive months. That lease term follows that same timeline of 36 consecutive months, and individual applicants of MOR-EV pickup trucks and Class 2B trucks may also be eligible for the MOR-EV Plus income qualifying rebate. We'll talk about MOR-EV trade-in. MOR-EV trade-in is a $1,000 rebate adder if you are looking to trade in an older gas vehicle. To qualify, you must be a Massachusetts resident, and you must be trading in or that qualifying gas car at the same time as purchasing or leasing that eligible EV and receiving MOR-EV used or standard or MOR-EV trucks. In terms of eligibility, you'll have to trade it in after August 8th of 2023, so I don't think that'll be an issue. That vehicle will need a valid inspection report. It'll need to be at least 12 years old and have market value. More importantly, it must be traded in at a licensed Massachusetts dealership. You may apply online and submit your required documentation within 90 days of purchasing or leasing that eligible new vehicle. And so that goes to say that you would receive this after receiving the MOR-EV standard and MOR-EV used. I think we can move on to the next slide. And we'll talk about the pre-qualification process for MOR-EV used and MOR-EV Plus. You can apply online at the MOREV.org website. There is a big button called Apply for the Rebate. And I will mention that only individuals will be able to apply for the MOR-EV Plus pre-qualification voucher. I recommend applying before purchasing or leasing the vehicle. Might indicate which income qualifying programs you participate in. You will need to upload a copy of your Massachusetts driver's license and submit proof of participation of the income qualifying program that you are participating in. For MOR-EV used, only individuals will apply for the pre-qualification voucher. You would apply for the pre-qualification voucher before purchasing or leasing a vehicle. And even if you don't participate in an income qualifying program, you can still apply and qualify depending on your income and tax filing status. So this would be a case where you would upload your Massachusetts driver's license and tax transcript to confirm your income eligibility for MOR-EV used. We'll talk about the federal tax credit. I must mention that we at Green Energy Consumers Alliance or the program administrators cannot provide tax or accounting advice, and we always recommend individuals to consult a tax professional for any specific information to your situation. And it is important to mention that you should act now to access the federal tax credit, because the federal tax credit of $7,500 for new EVs and $4,000 for used EVs expires on September 30th, 2025, as set in the newly passed budget bill, also called the Big Beautiful Bill. We urge you to purchase or lease your EV as soon as possible to make sure that you can access savings from the federal tax credit. We'll start with the federal clean vehicle tax credit for new EVs. This is $7,500 on eligible models that meet specific battery and assembly requirements. It can be claimed at the point of sale or when filing taxes. You must purchase from an IRS registered dealership. There is not a complete list, so a way to get around this is calling or going in person to the dealership and speaking to a salesperson or a manager to confirm that the dealership is registered with the IRS. There are some income requirements as well, as you can see here. In terms of new vehicle requirements, that assembly location must be in North America, and the MSRP refers to the price limit, or the sticker price, as you will see. That price limit for SUVs, vans, and pickup trucks is $80,000, and it is $55,000 for sedans and hatchbacks. There are two sets of mineral and battery mineral requirements as well. And those are a complicated list. We recommend utilizing the list of eligible cars on the IRS website for a easy, clarifying overview of which vehicles qualify for the federal clean vehicle tax credit. Regarding those two sets of complicated mineral and battery mineral requirements, you might receive half of the $7,500, so $3,750, if the vehicle meets only one battery requirement or mineral requirement, and $7,500 if it meets both. And if none of those requirements are met, you would not receive the federal clean vehicle tax credit. Okay. Leasing is another option. Created under the Inflation Reduction Act, there was created a commercial vehicle tax credit, which does not have the same eligibility requirements as the tax credit we were just looking at. Essentially, dealerships claim the commercial vehicle tax credit when they acquire vehicles from the manufacturers through which they lease. And many dealerships, if not the majority actually, pass these savings on to consumers and will advertise it as a $7,500 lease rebate. It'll be in the form of a lower down payment or a lower monthly payment. So if you are looking to obtain either tax credit before September 30th, and the vehicle that you are thinking of does not qualify and meet the complicated battery or mineral requirements of the clean vehicle tax credit, leasing is an alternative option. There's also a federal clean vehicle tax credit for used vehicles. In this case, battery requirements do not apply. So that rebate amount is $4,000 or 30% of sales price, whichever is lower. And for this incentive, you must buy the dealership from a dealership, and the vehicle must be at least 2 years old and cost less than $25,000. There is a lower income threshold, as you can see here. Whereas for the federal clean vehicle tax credit, that limit for individual filers was $150,000. For the federal used tax credit, that limit is $75,000 for individual filers. In terms of claiming the tax credit, you can choose to transfer the tax credit liability to an IRS registered dealership, and that would mean you receive it at the point of sale, or you can take the credit when filing taxes. If receiving it at the point of sale, you would receive cash, meaning you would apply it towards the down payment or towards the cost of the EV, or if you're leasing, in the form of lower monthly payments. If you would take at the time of sale, you can access the rebate regardless of your tax liability for both new and used battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. If you choose to go with receiving it when filing taxes, you can only claim up to your federal tax liability. Again, so receiving at the point of sale, it acts as a discount or money off the sales price. Some other steps are important in claiming the tax credit. First, we recommend confirming that your expected income for this year is under the required limit. And you want to make sure that the dealership that you are working with is registered with the IRS Energy Credits online portal. We recommend verifying this and asking a salesperson or general manager to confirm. And step 2 is very important because dealers have only 3 days after the point of purchase to register your vehicle on the Energy Credit Online portal. And essentially, that confirms with the IRS that your information and your vehicle qualify for the tax credit. And the dealership must give you a time of sale report that they've submitted on the portal and a copy of a confirmation from the IRS of successful submission so that you know that your information was submitted successfully. And then during tax season, you would need to fill out Form 8936, and that is regardless of whether you do not normally file taxes or if you received the incentive at the point of sale. I would love to highlight our EV Finder. This is a tool, it's a shopping tool. So if you are curious about EVs or don't know where to start, recommend taking a look at this. You can filter and look at available EVs that are on the road and available for purchase. You could filter by lowest possible cost after incentives, range, which is important, or charging speed. We'll look at some real examples, taking the information that we just learned. We can look at how some of those rebates or incentives more so can be added and how you can save more on some of the vehicles that we'll look at. We'll first look at Nissan Ariya. Current Auto recently named the Nissan Ariya as their best EV, used EV for 2025. Current Auto does a lot of research on the topic of EVs and range and things like that. They're a great resource. So if we're looking at the Nissan Ariya, we know that the Ariya has been on the road from 2023. That range, taking into account the 3 model years and the trims, ranges from 216 to 304 miles. And that price range, Barton Kelly Blue Book, ranges from $19,803 to $55,760. If you're looking at the 2023 lowest trim model to the 2025 highest cost trim model. And within Boston, there are around 15 used models for sale that meet the federal used tax credit price limit of $25,000. And this is just one corner of Boston, so depending on where you are, there may or may not be more available near you. And I'll break this down right here. So we have a real example of a 2023 Nissan Ariya that was listed, and this has 12,412 miles on board already. That fair purchase price for this 2023 model was $19,803 to $23,667. And the price that through which this vehicle was listed at was $23,367. When we apply the federal used tax credit of $4,000 and MOR-EV used of $3,500, we're left with a final price of $15,867. If you are an income qualifying applicant and are accessing MOR-EV Plus, this is an additional $1,500, and your final purchase price would be $14,367. If we're trading in a gas car that qualifies for MOR-EV trade-in, our final price would be subtracted by $1,000, and we'd be left with a final price of $13,367. We have a couple examples to follow, but we'll do a high-level breakdown using what we just learned. Next, we have a Hyundai Kona. Here we can see it has a range of 258 miles, and that fair purchase price range ranges from $13,600 to around almost $22,000. There are a few used Hyundai Konas for sale within the greater Boston area. This is a real example, again, taken from a dealership near Boston. We're looking at a 22 model year Hyundai Kona with 22,580 miles. That first price we're seeing here that it's listed for is $16,900. If we were to apply the federal use tax credit and MOR-EV use, we're left with $9,400. And then if we are income qualifying, that price becomes lower. And if we are trading in, that price becomes $6,900. So see that within the last two examples we looked at, that when you apply the rebates, or the incentives actually, when you apply the incentives, you're saving quite a bit off of the cost of a new electric vehicle. New or used, new for you. And then next we have a Chevy Bolt EUV, another popular vehicle that has been on the road, and we're looking at model years 2022 and 2023. Mean range is 257 miles. You can see that that fair price ranges from around $19,000 to almost $23,000. And there are quite a few used Chevy Bolt EUVs within 20 miles of Boston. And then a real example is a 2022 model year Chevy Bolt EUV with 32,286 miles on deck. That for purchase price ranges from almost $17,000 to $20,000. We're looking at a price of $20,450. After we apply the federal use tax credit of $4,000 and MOR-EV use $3,500, we're left with $12,950. We apply MOR-EV Plus and we're income qualifying, we're left with $11,450. And then with MOR-EV trade-in, if we're trading in a gas car, we're left with $10,450. That concludes the bulk of our presentation. I hope that we're able to learn about some of the different public health, economic, as well as environmental benefits behind electric vehicles. And if you have any questions about how MOR-EV rebates and the federal tax credit incentive add up, I will share our email in the following slides. And we will be at a few events. On July 26th, we will be at Jerkfest in Boston with some static EVs. We'll be joined by some EV ambassadors. We'll also be out in Lowell. We'll be in Pittsfield. We'll be in Quincy. So we'll be all over the state. And if you live in Western Mass and you are curious about EVs and would like to test drive, we invite you to a test drive event we are hosting with one of our partners in Springfield on August 19th. I'll pause for quick survey. We generally ask attendees to take if they have a few minutes. This survey helps us to assess EV awareness in our community. Yeah. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, Caroline Gracia, or Anna, our electric vehicle program director. Our emails are written here. I'll pause here for a moment. For any specific questions about MOR-EV, you can reach out to us, but also the MOR-EV program team emails are listed here as well. Oh, thank you for tuning in. We'd hope to stay in touch. We publish a quarterly newsletter, and we also have a Drive Green Facebook group. We're always looking for new EV ambassadors to join us at community events as well. So we'd love to stay in the loop with you. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to our webinar.